The evening commenced as usual, with the soft glow of the living room lamp illuminating the photographs on the mantelpiece. Each photograph depicted a moment in time, a frozen instant that now felt distant and unfamiliar. My name is Eleanor, and if you had asked me a week ago, I would have told you that while my life was reasonably stable, it now feels uncertain. Everything changed with a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the rhythmic tapping sent a shiver through me, causing me to pull my cardigan tighter. I opened the door. The situation was not ideal, but it was stable. However, I now feel uncertain about the future. It began with a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the rhythmic tapping sent a shiver through me, causing me to pull my cardigan tight. I opened the door to see my son Alex standing there. His face was pale, and his eyes were clouded with something I couldn't quite place. "Mom," he said, his voice barely audible. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside, concern rising in my chest. Alex wasn't the type to show vulnerability easily. At 25, he was independent, strong-willed, and fiercely protective of me. It had been just the two of us since his father, Richard, had walked out nearly a decade ago, leaving behind more questions than answers. We sat in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound between us. I poured us each a cup of tea, but Alex did not drink from his cup. Instead, he gazed intently at the steaming liquid, his hands clenched around the mug. "What is the matter?" I inquired, unable to endure the silence any longer. He looked up at me, his eyes conveying an emotion I could not identify. "I have been thinking about Dad," he said. The mention of Alex did not drink from the cup. Instead, he gazed into the steaming liquid, his hands clenched around the mug. "What's wrong?" I inquired, unable to endure the silence any longer. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with an emotion I couldn't name. "I've been thinking about Dad," he said. The mention of Richard's name was like a slap. I hadn't heard the name spoken aloud in years, and it brought with it a flood of memories I'd worked hard to bury. "What about him?" I asked cautiously. Alex hesitated, then said, "Do you ever regret staying with him for as long as you did?" His question caught me off guard. Richard's name evoked a flood of memories I had long tried to suppress. I inquired, "Do you ever regret staying with him for as long as you did?" His question took me by surprise. I had avoided the term regret for so long, afraid that acknowledging it would unravel everything I had fought to hold together. But now, faced with Alex's earnest gaze, I felt compelled to answer honestly. "I don't regret giving you a family," I said slowly, "but I do regret the years I spent." I had avoided the term regret for a long time because I was afraid that acknowledging it would disrupt the stability I had worked so hard to maintain. However, when I looked into Alex's eyes, I felt compelled to respond candidly. "I don't regret providing you with a family, but I do regret the years I spent convincing myself that things would improve when they never did," I said. Alex nodded, his expression showing pain. "I always thought it was my fault," he admitted. "No," I said firmly. Reaching across the table to grasp his hand, I added, "Richard's decisions were his own. Alex, you were just a child. None of this was ever your fault." "I always thought it was my fault. I thought if I'd been a better son, maybe he would have stayed." "None of that was your fault, Alex. You were just a child." We sat in silence for a while. The weight of the past settled around us like a heavy blanket. Finally, Alex broke the quiet. "I've been having dreams about him," he said. "About the day he left." My heart clenched. That day was etched in my memory. "Alex, none of this was ever your fault. You were just a child." We sat in silence for a while. The weight of the past settled around us like a heavy blanket. Finally, Alex broke the quiet. "I've been having dreams about him," he said. "The day he left." My heart clenched. That day was etched in my memory like a scar. Richard's hurried action, his refusal to meet my eyes, and the way Alex had clung to my leg, crying as his father walked out the door. "What do you dream about?" I asked softly. "It's not always the same," Alex replied. "Sometimes he's angry, sometimes he's just gone, but in." I inquired about Alex's dreams, and he replied that they vary. Sometimes he is angry and sometimes he is distant. However, in every dream I feel like I'm to blame. Tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them away. I said to Alex, my voice trembling. You were never to blame. Your father made his choices, and they had nothing to do with you. That night, after Alex had gone to bed, I found myself unable to sleep. I paced. I felt as if I were responsible for the situation. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I blinked them away. Alex, you were never to blame, I said, my voice trembling. Your father made his choices, and they had nothing to do with you. That night, after Alex had gone to bed, I found myself unable to sleep. I paced in the living room, where the moonlight cast long shadows across the floor. My mind was racing, replaying our conversation over and over. For so long, I tried to shield Alex from the pain of Richard's abandonment, but now I realized that in doing so, I'd left him to carry that burden alone. The following morning, I resolved to talk to Alex again. I needed him to understand that he wasn't alone in his pain, and that we could face it together over breakfast. I broached the subject cautiously. Alex, I've been thinking about what you said last night. I began. He looked up from his plate, his expression guarded. Yeah, I think it's time we stop pretending that everything's okay. We need to talk about what happened and how it's affected both of us. Alex hesitated, then nodded. Okay, where do we start? We spent the day talking, really talking. We shared memories, some painful, some not. It was a complex and emotional experience. We experienced a range of emotions from tears to laughter. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of release, as though a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying had been lifted. However, as the sun began to set, a new tension emerged in the room. Alex's gaze lingered on me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we shared a moment of tension, punctuated by Alex's hesitant disclosure at the end of the day. Mom, there's something else I need to tell you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. My heart raced, and I inquired about the nature of the revelation. Alex looked away, his jaw tightening. I've been seeing someone, he confessed. I felt a sense of relief wash over me, though it was short-lived. There's something else I need to tell you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. My heart raced. What is it? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. I've been seeing someone, he said. I felt relieved but also curious. We're just friends, he said. His voice told me there was more to the story. Who is it? I asked gently. He hesitated, then said, It's someone I work with. Her name's Sarah, but there's a problem. What kind of problem? I asked. She's married, he said, running a hand through his hair. Alex's tone suggested a deeper complexity to the situation. The room seemed to tilt. I said, my voice firm. Alex, I understand your concerns, but this is not the solution. You know how much pain infidelity causes. I know, Mom, he said, his voice cracking. But it's not that simple. She's unhappy, and I care about her. I shook my head. The room appeared to be tilting. I looked at Alex, struggling to process his words. Alex, no, I said firmly. You can't do this. You know how much pain infidelity causes. Mom, I understand, he said, his voice cracking. But it's not that simple. She's unhappy, and I care about her. Tears welled up in Alex's eyes. You deserve someone who can give you their whole heart, not someone tied to someone else, I said. I didn't plan for this to happen, he said, his voice rising. I didn't ask for it, but now that it has, I can't just walk away. We argued late into the night, Alex's voice rose as he said, I didn't plan for this to happen. I didn't ask for it, but now that it has, I can't just walk away. We argued late into the night. Our voices echoed through the house. I begged him to reconsider, to think about the consequences. Alex was stubborn, and I could see that his heart was already entangled. The days that followed saw our relationship growing strained. We spoke less, and when we did, it was clipped and tense. I expressed my concerns to Alex, emphasizing the potential repercussions of our actions. However, he remained steadfast in his decision, and our relationship deteriorated. One evening, as I sat alone in the living room, I felt overwhelmed by the situation. Alex entered and sat across from me. His demeanor was somber, and he spoke gently. I felt relieved, yet his eyes conveyed sadness. I inquired about his well-being, and he declined to answer. That night we engaged in a lengthy conversation, and for the first time in weeks, I witnessed a glimmer of hope. Alex was distressed, but he demonstrated resilience, and I knew he would overcome this challenge. He spent the night on the couch. I witnessed his first full-face PE in several days. It was evident that he had matured significantly. He was no longer a boy, but a young man navigating the intricacies of life. In the weeks that followed, Alex and I strengthened our relationship. We confronted our challenges together, and in doing so we found new resilience. Our bond was unshakable, forged through adversity and recovery. While the scars from the past would always be a reminder of our resilience, they also served as a testament to the strength of our bond. Ultimately, it was not the pain that defined us, but the love that sustained us.